there and welcome back to Japan, to what is essentially speaking a follow-up video to a video I released about a week ago where we were talking about the innate qualities that a Japanese artist needs to break out of Japan into the international, moreover the Western market. And I set forward what I believed was a bit of a theory for sort of a loose framework of 3 qualities that an artist can have that if they score 2 points out of those 3, they're very likely to break out into an international market and be successful. And this was basically to start a bit of discussion, and the discussion was fantastic. This is one of the reasons why I want to follow up on it. We got so many comments once again, and so I thought worth following up on this. Big thank you to everyone both on the YouTube comments and on the Discord. You know, people giving their suggestions for scores that they would give to other artists on this 3-point system. Also, if you're watching this video and you haven't seen the previous video, I will pop a link in the description below to that video. Please go and watch it before you watch this, as there were a lot of things that I went into, the details for why I came up with this system, and also gave some points for some artists in that video. I really think that I'm not going to go over everything again here, maybe recover some ground, but I really think if you haven't seen that video, please go and watch it before this one, or you're going to be sort of joining us a little bit too far into the discussion, I think. Now, like I say, a big thank you first of all for the maturity and quality of the comments. We all know what YouTube comments can devolve into, and I love the fact that people really tested the theory, came back with their sort of disagreements and agreements on it. Like I say though, it's a very loose framework, and what I wanted to do is, before I give some more scores for more artists today, I wanted to first of all just address some of the things that you guys had mentioned, and thus I have notes over here, which you're going to see me looking over here and occasionally referencing my notes, and then every now and then when I need a little bit of a pause, I'm going to drink some of this coffee, also before it gets cold. You know, I always set one of these up at the beginning of the video, and usually by the end of the video, it's cold. So, let's have a little look at some of the things that have been mentioned. Now, first of all, one of the things I really wanted to point out here is, once again, to reiterate, quickly say the 3 points were a juxtaposition of image, you know, having an image that is curiously sort of, it seems like it's almost at odds with itself, something which makes people go, I want to know what that is. Second point is, because it just seems so curious. The second point is having a unique sound. And the third point is having a quality of musicianship that is just exceptional. Now, I covered the reasons for those, but I'm going to go into slightly defending those points a little bit before, like I say, I give some scores for some more artists today. And one of the things I wanted to point out, again, I will come back around to this because I think this slightly comes underneath all of this. The first artist I gave a score for was Silent Siren, because obviously, as you guys know if you've been following this channel, I'm a big fan of theirs, and on this system I basically gave them a 0.5, and even that I thought I was pushing my luck. This is not to do with how good an artist is, how much you like them personally, it's to do with objectively how they sit on this scale. And I ruled out 2 things. One was quality of writing, and one was the marketing side of things, and I tried to give reasons for that, and I think a lot of people were sort of questioning, especially the marketing side, in the comments. Now, I really wanted to sort of cover why we're not including marketing in a little bit more detail, because like I said, there was a lot of comments in regards to this, and some of the people, some mentions that came up were, you know, if an artist wants to break out of Japan, they should be thinking about regular gigging, social media, the marketing qualities. And also, a lot of people said speaking English as well. Now, I want to kind of address a few of those issues and why I don't think they're so relevant to this particular argument. But first of all, I probably should kind of underscore all of that by saying in better detail why I don't want to include marketing in this particular scoring system. And the reason is because what I'm looking at here, I mean, basically you can take an artist, and the marketing is, you know, artists do get involved in their marketing. They can do a good job of it, but ultimately marketing is very separate from the artist. You can have things like, you know, marketing, which we said this before, marketing that can really push an artist forward, like with Ningenes, that was really well handled. You can get things like with Scandal, where, like I say, I think that their marketing is not up to the quality of the artists themselves. But this is a very different art. It's a very different art form, and I think it's a whole different discussion we can have separately at a different time. But what I'm looking at here is, when you have an artist, when they come out of the studio, whether it be their first album, their 10th album, whatever, they come out of the studio, and you've just got that, if you like to use the marketing term, product. You have that product in front of you. Now, let's just assume that the marketing is done properly. How innately marketable is that product? How likely is this artist to break out just as a creative product, the way that they've presented themselves, all of that? I know that some people point out, for example, you get a group like Baby Metal. Baby Metal, obviously, they very much become their own thing. But initially, they were created. I mean, as the girls pointed out themselves, before they started doing Baby Metal, I think all three of them had said that they'd never really listened to metal before. But, like I say, I'm not really looking at the why. I'm not looking at why these artists are the way they are. I'm just saying, in that instant, when you have them there, how marketable is this thing to a foreign artist, a foreign audience? How likely is this to turn the heads of listeners? Now, just to cover a few of the points more specifically, because one of the things that comes up for a lot of these as well, if we were just to quickly talk about marketing, people saying how often you gig and how you do social media and things like that. To be honest, in 2020, I don't think that you would get any extra points for gigging regularly or being good at social media. As far as I'm concerned, those are things that you just need to do to turn up at the starting line. If you want to be at the starting line to even have a chance, you need to have a presence on social media. You need to be gigging regularly, or at least gigging as much as supply and demand allows you to do so. And obviously supply and demand, you're going to get more demand if you hit the 3 points that we're talking about here. So again, I can't really include these things because, like I say, first of all, it's a very different art form, and we can have a separate conversation about that at a different time, but I'm more looking here at how marketable the artist is before you actually get to marketing them. And like I say, most of the qualities that have been sort of pointed out are things that I think just artists need to do anyway in this day and age to even stand a chance. Also, the thing about speaking English, that's a very interesting one. I think that can be a double-edged sword. If I'm honest with you, I've never seen any evidence that that necessarily is something that pushes you forwards. In fact, I would argue that in some artists' case, not speaking English, or at least not speaking English well, gives them a little bit more novelty value. It plays to the fact that they are a foreign artist. They are a niche. They're an interesting little quirky thing that's arrived. Whereas if they speak perfect English, especially if they're speaking English regularly in their songs, we're not so much talking about how marketable Japanese music is in the West. We're just talking about artists who are just trying to do Western music then, if you know what I mean. So I'm talking about how we take music that was clearly designed for the Japanese market, not pandering to the Western market, but music that is for the Western market, and how we move it across to make it, how easy it will be to make it something that a Western artist will, Western audience, keep on saying artist, Western audience will listen to. Another thing to bring out here as well, a lot of people made comments about the audiences in question. Yeah, there's a lot of things that we came up with here. I would say that when we talk about audience, we're not talking about sort of charting top 10 in like the US. You know, admittedly, groups like Baby Metal have done fantastic with charting, but we're talking more about the fact that as a general, there's a lot of people out there who love music, but there's so much music available. I mean, you go on Spotify, there's so much music. You go into like so you want to buy an album, there's like 1 million albums out there or singles or whatever. The truth is, there's so many artists so freely available in the age, again, that we're in, where music is a very open thing, you know, anyone can self-publish, that we've kind of got to that point where even for a music fan who's genuinely a music fan, who's not just sort of listening to whatever comes up on the radio, it's hard for you to search through the sea of things there are and find what you want. I mean, how many of you guys, as genuine music fans, as I assume you are if you're involved in a discussion like this, have like just sort of, you always listen to new music. You're always trying to find new music. And then someone will come up and they'll give you like this artist who you've never heard of before, who've actually been around for like 7 or 8 years and who you think are fantastic. And you think, how did I never hear this before? That's my point. There's so much music out there. We're talking about just how innately marketable an artist is. How much will an artist get you to turn your head? As I said before, with something like Baby Metal, you know, even before you'd heard the first note, when someone said to you back in 2010, in that particular day and age, when someone had said to you, hey, here is a Japanese dancing girl group who do metal, you don't have to hear the first note. You're already going, I want to check that out. You know, this is my point. We're looking very much at that sort of scale of things. So anyway, I've done a lot of waffling already. I'm going to jump in on a few points more before I get into scoring a few more artists, though, which is specifically, now this is moving on from the marketing to my actual 3-point system. I think most people were like really on board with what I meant by juxtaposition of image. I think everyone kind of understood that. That seemed to be something we all kind of agreed on. When it comes to the uniqueness of sound, as I said at the time, this is a really, really hard one for us to talk about artists that we like. And I'd noticed that some people were doing the same thing I did with Silent Siren and kind of going, well, this artist that I like are really unique. They got a really special sound, but I think we all kind of know it's not that easy to do. And this is why I say I don't think it's almost impossible to score that for an artist that you actually like. I would say, though, that some people had said, well, for example, with the Scandal thing, oh, you listen to Scandal's songs, they're all so different, they're all so unique. Yeah, true. But again, we're talking about how much you can grab the interest of a listener. And if you took any of Scandal's songs in isolation and played them as the first song that someone had ever heard by Scandal, would they sound like something completely new? No. I don't think they would. However, if you were to, if you had someone who was a captive audience, like in a concert, and as a result they would just, they'd gone to a festival, they were in a crowd, Scandal come on, Scandal play 4 or 5 songs, then I kind of get it. So that's kind of one of those situations. Like I say, this is a very loose framework to try and build, and we can look at nuances in these 3 points later. So with something like Scandal, I would maybe say, okay, if you wanted to sort of twist that to like half a point, I would be with you on that one. But like I say, again, I don't think that Scandal have a lot of different sounds, but I don't think overall they have a sound that is unique. They're just very, very good at what they do. And by the way, when I say unique, obviously I'm not saying they sound like all other bands. I'm saying it's not like they've created their own kind of subgenre or anything like that. Again, I know I gave this point to Baby Metal, but I said, again, that's a contextual thing. Again, looking for nuance in this. Baby Metal, just because they're within metal, which is itself kind of like a contained thing. Actually, one of the interesting points that came up is I said that Baby Metal scored that point for individuality of sound, uniqueness of sound, because of the fact that unlike most metal bands, they were open to scouring across all the subgenres of metal and doing all different types of metal, doing rap metal, prog metal, all these things, high production, low production. They really went around all of those different areas, orchestral metal, everything. So in that point, I gave them that, but I didn't give them exceptional musicianship because I said in metal, metal is such a musicianship-focused genre that most people have heard, like just sort of top-flight musicianship in pretty much all of their artists. It's what the focus is. The best metal bands are usually the ones that people go, yeah, look at that musicianship, look at that shredding. So for me, it's almost impossible for someone to score that 3rd point in the metal genre. And a lot of people actually kind of said that they weren't sure that was the right way round. Like I said, I was scoring that from the perspective of someone who is a metal fan. If, however, you took that back to the wider audience, I would actually flip those 2 points around. I would say then, if you were looking at like a pop fan, someone who grew up on a steady diet of pop rock, and you gave them Baby Metal, then yes, you probably would then be able to give them exceptional musicianship, give them that point, but then you'd have to take away the other point for a unique sound, because to a more general audience, it would all just kind of be metal, if you see what I'm saying. So yeah, context is a thing as well. I can't say it enough. This is a loose framework, and there will always be nuance and context within these things, which is why it makes a fun discussion topic. It has, I think it has objective truths within it, but we can take subjective views and contextual views at these points as well. So, yeah, just to cover that last point as well. Like I say, the point about exceptional musicianship, really, we mean exceptional musicianship. We mean something where you hear it, you think, I have not heard that before. I have not heard someone do that with an instrument before. This is kind of what I mean. I think a lot of people were saying, yeah, but this artist is amazing. Loads of people think this artist is amazing when they were talking about various artists in this category. But my point is, amazing is not good enough. I mean, exceptional. I mean, you have to be something above what people are used to hearing, where they just go, I have not heard someone do that with a musical instrument before. This is kind of my point. So I hope that covers a few things. I've waffled into that a little bit. I've covered about 15 minutes just going over those things. So without further ado, we're going to talk about some more artists. Now, you guys brought up some interesting ones, but I thought I'd cover a few artists who I think make a very interesting case for this, who I think have got a bit of a, who are maybe a little bit outside of the norm. Now, there's a lot of guitar bands in Japan who I really enjoy, who nonetheless I would have to say pretty much all of them would get 0 on this scale simply because of the fact that they're just straight shooting good quality. And like I said, this is not a scale of quality, this is a scale of marketability. When we're looking at bands like Peggy's, Regal Lily, Mutant Monster, Lucy 2, all of these are good quality bands, but I think we can all agree that they kind of have this thing in common that on all three of those scales, juxtaposition of image, none of them are going for an image gimmick, they're just being straight shooting bands, so they'd all score 0 on that. When we're talking about having a unique sound, well, they're all different, yes, but none of them are trying to reinvent the wheel or create a new genre, so they'd all get 0 on that. When we're talking about sort of exceptional musicianship, well, a lot of them, I mean, some of them just I've never really heard them push their talents too much. Some of them have, but all of them are basically just sort of good at playing their music. So, like I say, I don't think that any of them would score like exceptional. Not something where, again, you'd say, wow, oh my God, I've never heard someone do that with a musical instrument before. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of bands who would fit into that 0 scale. And I want to cover again, these points should be difficult. Getting 1 out of 3 should be difficult. Getting 2 out of 3 should be very rare. Like I say, 0 should be the default. We should expect even good artists to basically be getting 0. This should be difficult because, like I say, this is to be good enough that you have to be able to break out of Japan, you have the quality to break out of Japan, grab the interest of foreign markets, people who are listening, have got so much music available to them already, grab their interest and make them listen to something in a language that maybe they don't usually listen to. So again, remember, these points should be difficult to get. Even 1 should be difficult to get. So anyway, without further ado, let's jump in. I'm going to jump in with one that I can't believe I forgot to mention last time. Sorry, Yuka. I even put a little caption on the screen when I was editing that video and I realised I hadn't spoken about it. Wagakki Band. Okay, now the reason I was surprised I didn't talk about Wagakki Band is because I think Wagakki Band are actually very, very relevant to this discussion. Now, the first point is in regards to juxtaposition of image, and I think that this is a difficult one. This is a very difficult one for Wagakki Band. I can just about give them this point, but I must admit it's only just there, and I'll tell you for why. So obviously, the first thing, they have innate quality, a lot like Baby Metal do, in that their entire sound, their entire ethos, what they are as a band, is built around a mixture of styles, which means that they just, innately they have that wonderful little juxtaposition of things within their makeup. So, they have the traditional Japanese thing going on with that sort of cool rock, visual K thing for best part. I know they've kind of toned that down a bit recently. So why am I not just saying that's a solid, easy 1 point? The reason being is because maybe even in sort of 10 years from now, I might not be able to give them that point anymore. We're in this kind of situation where it's, I'm sure a lot of you have seen, if you're on social media, things like Facebook, you've probably seen that a few years ago, there was that thing where I was getting this in my feed all the time. Maybe it's just me, maybe it's just the algorithms, but they were recommending, check this out, Indian metal bands. Wow. And yeah, they were cool, but effectively what it was just like a music video of a band playing what was relatively generic metal, and someone would be playing a sitar. And maybe like some tabla drums in it. But effectively nothing about the writing in any way was different from normal metal. It was just kind of normal metal. The songs were not exceptional. They were well played, but it was just kind of, and the whole thing was everyone was going, oh, but there's a sitar in it. Oh my God. We have seen this, I guess the term is, sort of like ethnic music. I hate that because it's a little bit of a broad term, but basically traditional music from a region mixed with heavy rock. We've kind of seen that before. I think the reason why I'm going to give this to Wagakki Band this point is because, first of all, not only do they really, really throw themselves into it, secondly, I don't really think that we've seen any good examples, proper examples of a Japanese, a mix between Japanese style and, hard rock. And third of all is because they really are, they're really good at it in that, you look at the way that Yuko Suzuhana presents herself, that I don't know what the term is for this art form, but, the whole sort of way she does the fan twirling and all of that. and I've seen videos, she's sort of trained in like all of these sort of traditional dance and things like that, even like the sword dance thing. So, this is something where they are really, really doing it properly. They really have nailed both being hard rock and being traditional Japanese. They understand their art forms and they're mixing them very well. And I know that you could say that's not something that you instantly see. It's something that you have to really watch their videos to get. But I do think it comes across in their image. I think the whole way they present themselves, they really do look as much like a traditional Japanese group as they do like a hard rock group. I would say to look at them, it's hard to know. You are just as likely to get a group who just spews out metal as you are to get a group who are going to do very traditional, calm, Japanese-style folk music. Just to look at them, I don't think you can immediately tell what you're going to get. So this is why I give them that point. Now, before I move on to point number 2, I'm going to move straight on. I'm just going to skip ahead to point number 3, because I think this is going to be a slightly contentious one. Again, if you've understood the system, you'll probably know what I'm going to say. Point number 3, exceptional musicianship. I want to give them this point, but I can't. I really can't. The truth is that, again, they are really good at what they do. And especially Yuka Suzuhana's voice. You guys know how much I bleat on about Yuka Suzuhana's voice. I bleat on about it constantly. Are any of the musicians on a level where we've never heard that before? No, they're not. They're really, really good. I sat down and I watched during the lockdown. We didn't actually have a lockdown here. It was not an enforced lockdown, but most people just sort of did it out of general decency towards not spreading the virus. I watched Yuka Suzuhana's performances where she was just at home and she was just playing piano and singing, and it was breathtaking, brilliant. But I've heard people sing really well and play piano before. She wasn't like the best I'd ever heard. It just appealed to me because that was my taste. I love the sound of her voice, but I can't say that, this is what I'm saying. I have to be honest, and I want you guys to share this level of honesty with me because, again, like the Silent Siren thing, if you know me, you know how much it kills me to say this. But as much as I love what they do, they are not the best musicians to a point where you go, oh my God, hold the phone. I've never heard anyone do that with guitar. I've never heard anyone do that with a piano. I've never heard anyone do that before. So like I say, quality of musicianship, they are really, really up there, but I can't do that. And one of the other reasons I just wanted to say that as well is because I think that, again, because they have such a large ensemble sound. Now, I often defend this, as I did in a previous video when I was talking about, sort of band sound. Their large ensemble sound is what makes them so impressive, so big, gives them such a quality. But their quality is that they play as a band. They play so well interlocked. There's everything's working together. The whole machine's working together. All the parts are functioning together. And as a result, they're not the sort of group who really points towards virtuoso playing. It's more, I said this before, like playing like an orchestra. And therefore, when you're playing like that, the musicianship is all about, everything working together rather than sort of a wow moment. So, yeah, okay, I'm not going to give them point 3. Point 2 is the individuality of sound. Well, I feel quite safe giving them this. Again, I know that we've heard traditional music mixed with rock before. I don't think... I know there are examples. I don't think we've heard a really, really competent, well-executed mix of traditional Japanese music and hard rock delivered like this before, to a sort of degree where it's accessible, where people can, just anyone can enjoy it, where it's just something where you can get a real taste. Like I say, as someone who is a fan of traditional Japanese music, I do listen to it quite regularly. As you guys know, I play shamisen, koto, can't play shakuhachi to save my life. Sounds like a fart when I do it. As someone who really likes these art forms and listens to it a lot, I do genuinely feel that when you listen to Wagakki Band, you get, like, it's rock music, but you genuinely hear genuine traditional Japanese music in there. The qualities are there. It's really there. So, like I say, I think that that's just... It's partly down to the quality of execution, but the sound is something that I don't think you get anywhere else. Again, big fan of band-maid, but as I said, when they did the band micro thing, it was kind of fun, it was a bit playful, but that's what was missing. I didn't get any feeling that there was, true Japanese traditional music in there. It's just they'd taken some of the sounds and they'd layered them over, and it was kind of cool, but it didn't have that genuine feel what Wagakki Band does when they do it, and you wouldn't expect them to. That's not what you expect from it. It was kind of a bit of a playful April Fool's thing, wasn't it? So, and good CD, but like I say, to me, I preferred band-maid being band-maid because that's just when they're being themselves. So, and good at what they're doing. So, like I say, there is a real quality to Wagakki Band's sound that is just genuine, and so I have to give them a point for uniqueness of sound. I really think there is something about their sound that just, at the moment, I don't think you can get that from any other source. I don't think there's any reliable source where you can get what Wagakki Band do from anywhere else. So I give them that point. So therefore, actually, I give them 2 out of 3. And the reason I wanted to talk about this one first of all, mention Wagakki Band first of all, is because I think at the moment, Wagakki Band are they haven't quite burst out, but I think that could be coming. And I think one of the reasons is because, to go back to what you guys were saying, I think they've innately got the quality to break out, but I think their marketing up until this point has been very Japan-centric. So I think that, like I said, this is a separate conversation, but just because a lot of people had talked about marketing on top of things, what I am basically saying to you guys who are interested in the marketing side of things is that I think that when Wagakki Band get the marketing together, which it looks like they might be doing at the moment, I think they're on the brink of maybe breaking out. I think they could be quite a big thing. The collaboration with Amy Lee was a good decision, although, to be honest, Amy Lee is kind of yesterday's news. So I don't think that's going to get them a huge amount of mainstream knowledge. But I think if they are tied in with the Olympics, which I have reason to suspect they're aiming to do, certainly their current album has all of the hallmarks, even the name of that, I think Wagakki Band might be on the brink of a bit of a breakout. So keep an eye on them. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to mention them. Now, my next one I want to mention, it's going to take a while. Ladybaby. Let's jump in on this one. Now, Ladybaby, I thought were a really interesting one. Obviously, they broke up at the beginning of this year. Safely, they broke up before 2020 happened, probably so they could go into hiding somewhere. I don't know. But I think Ladybaby are a really interesting subject because they have... they danced around a few of these points. Now, first of all, point number 1, as you can imagine, this is one of the main reasons I wanted to talk about Ladybaby. Juxtaposition of image. Initially, obviously with the whole Ladybeard thing and having a large guy who I believe was like an Australian wrestler or something I'd heard, having him dressed up as a maid with pigtails, dancing around and shouting with them. And then, the other two who are sort of young J-pop singers. Yeah, I think juxtaposition of image was pretty heavy-handed there, but it worked. And the reason I say that is because even now, some of my friends who are just sort of curious about Japanese music, but not massively into it, people on my Facebook, I'll occasionally get sent links to oh, Howard, have you seen this before? And it'll be like the Ladybaby song from years ago with Ladybeard and was it Nippon Manju? I still get people sending me links for that, but no one's sending me links for their more recent stuff before they broke up. When they reformed, well, they went through a few stages, but that last stage where they were basically a group of, four girls. And this is where this gets kind of interesting. Because initially, when they first started out in that Ladybeard phase, I would have given them a point, juxtaposition of image. You got it. Obviously, I'm not going to give them exceptional musicianship because there was not really any of that on display. Uniqueness of sound, oh, that was a tricky one. I would be happy for anyone to argue yes or no on that one. I think we kind of have to put ourselves in the mindset of what the scene was at that time. Because again, context is a big part of this. At the time, I think their sound was still kind of curious enough and strange enough that they maybe could have scored that point. Also, you've got to remember the music they did, it did have a real... aha! I was ready for the card to time out this time. You remember when that happened in the last video? So anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, so Ladybaby's sound, it did have a real quality of being very pop in kind of a very Japanese way. It had that kind of skittish, fast chord changes, sort of meandering quality that Japanese pop does so well that I love that it really keeps you on your toes, whilst also having the heavy metal growls and everything and the shouty bits in it. So I think it would be safe to say that they maybe could get that point. But then again, like I say, if someone wanted to say, well, we've heard that all before. So when it comes to original form Ladybaby, I would be willing to give them anywhere between a 1 and a 2. However, I would perhaps argue that if you were to give them 2 points, I just don't think that the sound had enough longevity. The sound... I would have been interested to see how that would have gone if they kept like that, but I just think that the gimmick was maybe a little bit too much, that they maybe wouldn't have kept longevity. They would have had to have been creative enough to keep their sound interesting. So that was an interesting one. But what I think, the reason I wanted to bring Ladybaby into this is because towards the end of their career, the last few songs they released, they had some stuff that I thought was really, really interesting, really good. They went into some heavier directions with Hateni, I can't remember what it was called now. Then they had Dame Dame, which was kind of more of a poppy one, but again with a rock sound. They had a really good thing going there. However, latter day Ladybaby, juxtaposition of image, none. Because, we're at this point where seeing girls doing like hard rock and doing the dance stuff, it was kind of old news by that point. And plus they did take on a slightly harder image towards the end. They were fun, but slightly harder. There wasn't so much of a juxtaposition there as there was towards the beginning of their career. When it comes to individuality of sound, they had settled into a more serious mix, I say serious, but more of a well-written mix of hard rock and pop. There was more subtlety to the way that they were mixing these things together. Still fun, still crazy, but it was kind of very well executed to the point that it made the song more enjoyable if you were willing to sit down and listen to it, but not so likely to grab you as being, oh wow, that's really different. It kind of lost its shock value as it gained quality. Obviously, again, point 3, exceptional musicianship, that's a very hard point to score, and obviously I'm not going to give it in this case. Don't think we need to go into details of that. So the funny thing is that if you ask me, I definitely find their latter day stuff a million times more interesting, and I actually re-listen to some of it relatively often, whereas I never listen to their early stuff. However, it does not escape me that people are still, like my sort of friends who like, oh, Howard does a Japanese music channel, or Howard works in Japan, or Howard works with music in Japan. They're still like, oh, Howard, have you heard of this? Have you heard this? I'm constantly getting Nippon Manju sent to me. I think I've had it 3 times this year. And it's a pretty old song now, isn't it? I think, was it from 2013? It's a good 7 years old, and it's still circulating, which is pretty old in meme terms. That's back in the days of... Pimp My Ride memes. That's how old that is. So, it has to be said that is obviously shows that the original form was more marketable. I wonder how long they would have managed to keep that up, though. They would have to have really get a good writing staff to keep it interesting. However, like I say, one thing I want to sort of point out there is obviously... I think that, when Babe Metal started, their original material was actually, to be honest, it was better written. You look at stuff like Doki Doki Morning, it's better written than Nippon Manju, 100%. But certainly they stepped up their writing as they went on in response to the fame. The fame came in, the writing stepped up to back that up. So I wonder if Ladybaby had achieved some more fame from that, whether they could have managed to execute that with better eyes. It's a big debate, we'll never know. However, I think that's interesting to look at Ladybaby and see how their career changed, and how personally I thought they got much, much better, but their ability to grab people's attentions fell away. So, next one, Gacharic Spin. I'm going to cover this one quite quickly because this was mentioned. I just thought it was worth diving in on. With Gacharic Spin, I still wonder if I'm pronouncing that right, because people say is the first bit supposed to be like gacha, like gacha machines, but that'd be Gacharic Spin, which is real mouthful. Gacharic Spin. I'm going to call him Gacharic Spin, okay? Just going to do it. You know who I'm talking about. So Gacharic Spin, interesting one. Let's jump on to the sort of... Because they actually have interesting points on all 3 levels. Obviously, uniqueness of sound, that's the one I'm going to give them straight off the bat, because their sound is quite different. It's quite mad. They do some more normal stuff, but they've got a real sort of full-on wall of sound crazy thing. Kind of reminds me a bit of what Poly6 were doing before. You just listen to it and you go, that's mad. So I would give them uniqueness of sound. Juxtaposition of image, this is a difficult one. They just kind of look mad and crazy. Looking Mad and Crazy is kind of good. It does get people's interest, but there are a lot of bands who just kind of look, whoa, we're mad, or yeah, wow, we're bright. That's, I don't think on its own it's enough. It's not really a juxtaposition to anything. It's just kind of, hey, we're really crazy. That will get some people, but I don't think that's enough to be a selling point in of its own. So I can't give them a point for juxtaposition of image or for really having an image that is going to sell them in a big way. It's better than just being some bland-looking band who just do moody poses. Here's us with our instruments in an interesting environment. Aren't we cool? They're better than that, but I don't think it's enough to be a point, really. I don't think it's that level of exceptional interest that from their image. When it comes to exceptional musicianship, again, they are really interesting musicians. Similar thing, actually, here to Wagakki Band, in the they're really good musicians, but because they've got such a full, thick sound, their sound is more about everyone playing together. It's hard for anyone to really be picked out as standing out. You listen to band-maid, who I gave this point to previously, and you really can hear each member for the best part. You can really hear everything. In something like Gacharic Spin, not so much. It becomes, like I say, a wall of sound. It's part of what makes their sound so interesting. It's kind of more of a thick thing, you don't really hear any musician and go, wow, oh my god, can you hear that part? That part's unbelievable. So I would say Gacharic Spin, I'd give them 1 point, which would be for uniqueness of sound. So 1 out of 3. Again, that's pretty good. Like I said, getting any points in this scale, pretty damn good stuff. Let's move on. I wanted to mention briefly about Kyary, Pamyu, and Perfume. Obviously, all both being produced by Yanakoto Sotomute. Now, his sound is very interesting. So when it comes for uniqueness of sound, I would say that for Kyary and for Perfume's earlier work, I know they've tried to pander to a bit of a Western sound of recent, which I think, it might work if you go and do that at Coachella, but it's not really going to set you apart. It's not going to make people remember you very much. So the more Nakata sounding stuff, I think gets uniqueness of sound for both of them. When it comes to image, now a lot of people might say, and that's why I want to mention this after Gacharic Spin, a lot of people might say with Kyary Pamyu, does she really have a juxtaposition of image? Just about. And the reason I say that is because there is something about the mixture of cutesy but also slightly demented. So, for example, you think about the video that went viral, Pom Pom Pom. It's not just sort of cutesy stuff. I mean, there's imagery of like skulls, eyeballs coming out of people's mouths. Some stuff that, if you think about it, is kind of a little bit horrifying. And, she does play to this. When she does her cutesy pictures, sometimes she'll really sort of like pull and distort her face and do like crazy facial expressions that look a little bit demented. There is a quality to that. Whereas I think when you look at Gacharic Spin, the reason I set this apart is because they've kind of got that craziness, but there's kind of like a more mature adult craziness to it. They kind of look, they've got sort of self-confidence to it. It's not that sort of, here's a cute young singer who's a little bit mad. They kind of like, they look like I say, they look more comfortable with the crazy. This is a very hard one to describe, but this is sort of the difference I wanted to define. I'd be really interested in the comments for people to see, to say what you think about this separation between sort of that Gacharic Spin kind of crazy and the Kyary kind of crazy, which I think the Kyary kind of crazy certainly is more, it's more something that's going to grab someone's attention because of the fact that, like I say, it seems a little bit more weird. It seems a little bit more bizarre. And that's a point that obviously I would never give to Perfume, because Perfume, just their image is very straight-laced. So obviously neither of them are going to get exceptional musicianship because there's not really any musicianship in their music. And their singing's pretty safe pop style singing, So for them, I would say that with Perfume, they get a 1 out of 3. They have, in a similar way to Scandal, they've accrued, and by that 1 point, like I say, is at risk if they keep on pandering to a Western sound, in my opinion, which I think they've started to back away from a little bit, according to the most recent song, but it's close. I think, like Scandal, they've been around for long enough and become enough of an institution just to sort of accrue fans in Western countries from their name. And like I say, doing Coachella, I don't think it changed the world for Perfume. I think it got them some fans by proxy, but I don't think it's not like the West is now all talking about Perfume, because the truth is like I say, what they did was good, competent, interesting, nice, but it wasn't enough to really sort of turn people's heads away from the pop music that they already have in the West. It wasn't different enough to make people go, you know what, I need to, I need to get more of this. So I think that's probably an example of why Perfume have got a stable following, but they don't have that breakout value, I don't think. Whereas we look at something like Kyary, and I think Kyary does have more of that breakout value because of the sort of slightly demented thing. This is why she's so kind of likable, is because there is that real personality to the fact it's somewhere between cute and absolutely insane. And so, over time, she's kind of, she's played that card a lot. And I think she's got her fan base. She's broken out as much as she can, but I don't think there's a huge amount more that she can do beyond that. And I think that the crazy element, she's kind of toned that down a little bit of recent. So I'm not surprised really that Kyary broke out better in the West than Perfume. Like I say, Perfume's an example of accruing fans over a long time. Kyary is an example of, suddenly going viral. But credit to them both. Like I said, I enjoy both of them. But just wanted to cover that because I thought that was an interesting point. And again, I want to see what you guys think about the difference between sort of Gacharic Spin crazy and Kyary crazy. Can you see why I would personally think that the Kyary crazy is more intriguing? Let me know. More of a juxtaposition, at least. So moving on. Next, Alia. Alia, not the most famous band, but a band that I've really enjoyed. I wanted to mention them briefly, though, because if you don't know much Alia, do check them out. We've got some of the... we've got some of their videos reacted on this channel since we restarted. We did an Alia weekend since the channel restarted, so that's good. We've got some of their music on here. I wanted to cover them because... they're an interesting one for me. Juxtaposition of image, no, they just kind of look cool. They look really fun. They look really cool, but we've seen fun and cool before. That's nothing new. Uniqueness of sound, I would give them. This is one of the reasons I wanted to mention them. Some of their songs can be a little bit more normal, a little bit more straight-laced, but I think that they do actually have a sound that is not particularly common. And I think that's partly because of the fact that the keyboard player is really on point with doing sounds that, like I say, a lot of rock bands don't have a keyboard player, but you have a good keyboard player who knows how to add the right sounds. It means you've always got an extra level beyond rock in your music. You've always got a sound which is unusual. You can pick unusual sounds to fit your songs. And then that with the violin player, I think they've got a really interesting sound that I don't think I could really name another band who I would say really slots in as a direct replacement for them. I wouldn't say, I can go straight from Alia to something else and it's the same kind of thing, So I would give them 1 point for that. Obviously, again, exceptional musicianship. This is the almost impossible to score a point, and I don't think they're really going for that kind of thing. So they're great musicians, as pretty much all the artists are on these lists. But I would give them 1 out of 3. So Alia, I'll give them a 1 out of 3. Passcode. Contentious point. A lot of people find this one a bit strange. So I know Passcode are not everyone's favourite artist. A lot of people don't like their overly produced sound. I would say with Passcode, juxtaposition of image, no, they have an image that is kind of like very serious, and with their hard-edged music, everything being kind of loud and metally and had a screamy element to it. I don't really think, again, you go back to a pre-Baby Metal era and maybe we could have given that point just for the fact that they're a girl group, but nowadays we've seen that way too much, so I don't think I can give them that point for juxtaposition of image. Obviously, exceptional musician, 0.3, we're not going to give them that because it's not really what they're about. Point number 2, uniqueness of sound. This one, again, I'll be happy to argue this with anyone. I think that they have a unique enough sound to be interesting. I would argue that I probably could give them this point because I love how this sound just goes all over the place. It just change. It goes from one thing to another. It's like I said, we're used to hearing that pop metal infused crossover now in, like I say, this post-Baby Metal era. However, I don't think we're used to hearing it in such a sort of scatological, crazy, and yet well-formed way. I think Also, the fact that they rely very much as people hate it, they rely very much on the auto-tune, on the vocoders, on the production elements. They really are leaning into giving themselves quite a unique sound. They're leaning into giving themselves a sound that's different, even if a lot of people maybe don't like the elements they've picked, those high production, crazed, unsettled sort of directions that they go in. I appreciate that a lot of people might not necessarily be into that, but I think that they do nonetheless, whether you like it or not, they do have a sound that is quite unique, a sound that is quite special. Again, I would be happy if someone wanted to say, well, look, we've heard all that before. I would be willing to argue that point, but personally, I would give them that point. I would give Passcode 1. I'd give them 1 out of 3. So that's pretty good, actually. Lastly, I wanted to cover Yanakoto Sotomute. Now, again, you guys know I've really enjoyed this band, actually, but I had to jump in and mention these guys because I think you guys know where this is going to go. Juxtaposition of image, not really. There's kind of something a little bit about the fact that they're a girl band and they're sort of doing like rock music, but again, like I say, we're in this post-Babe Metal era. We look at a Japanese girl band and we don't really necessarily predict it's just going to be pop anymore. So, and what they're doing is not like, they're not like doing wild out there music. They're doing kind of straight shooting rock and roll for the best bit, kind of pop rock. So like I said, I can't quite say they get juxtaposition of image really, to be honest. No. When it comes to uniqueness of sound, no, their sound, like I say, I mean, I would, if you took away the band and just sort of, if you took away the videos and just let me hear it, I'd say it just sounds kind of like again, like one of those bands I was mentioning earlier, like a sort of a Peggy's, Regal Lily, that kind of thing. It sounds like this. Oh, it's a Japanese rock band. So, you know, they're not doing anything we haven't heard before. And when it comes to exceptional musicianship, actually one of the things that I most like about them is that they are very, very light on showy musicianship. It's all very straight played. So I would give them a straight 0 on this. And yet I think that they have a really good melodic quality. So Yanakoto Sotomute is one of those groups who I don't think they're ever going to burst out in any big way, but I think they have that quality that we were talking about before, where some artists can accrue fans. I think if they keep on going, just from their sheer focus on melody, their sheer focus on songwriting, on just basically nice, simple music, and being consistent about that, I think they will every time I talk about Yanakoto Sotomute, I just remember that video where one of the members has a bucket on her head. Erase the image. Okay. This one frame, I was like, what is the director doing? If he, she, whatever, if they're not laughing, why did you put a bucket on her head? Anyway, moving on. So like I say, I think that was their moment of juxtaposition of image. That's what they should appear on all their posters with buckets on their heads. There you go. I've made you more marketable. Oh God, I'm going to hell, aren't I? As I say, YSM, they are going to, in my opinion, if they keep on going, if they keep this up, they're going to slowly accrue fans. I think that they have a good sort of, a nice quality to just sort of being good melody. And as we've discussed in the Discord before, one of the things that Japan's really bringing to the world is there's been a lot of discussion about the death of melody in the West. And I do agree with this. I think music is made up of 2 core items, which is, before production, just in the writing, it's rhythm and melody. That's all that music is, rhythm and melody, and how you construct those together through various sounds. But it is true that Western music is kind of dropping melody a lot, and I'm not surprised considering you can get sued for anything which is even vaguely like a melody that's been done before, and considering there's only 12 notes in the Western scale, then I think that's kind of like, you know, setting everyone up to be sued for even trying to write a song. So that's probably part of the reason. But I do think that Japan is obviously bringing a lot of melodic music to the West. That's one of the qualities that I think people like about Japanese music, and Yanakoto Sotomute have got that. So I don't think they've got a breakout quality, but I think that if they keep on doing this, like I say, they will be appreciated over time. So I think they're playing the long game. I think we could be seeing something really interesting from them. Yeah, maybe if they're still going into, if they got like a Perfume style career and they're still going in 20 years time, we could see them as a bit of a cult following group. So I wish them the best. Again, I just wanted to cover this. Now, let's wrap this one up by saying, before I get on to giving requests to you guys, I just wanted to say again, I know you know this, but I have to reiterate it. First of all, this is just a framework. This is a fun framework. It is based, like I say, on my experience with the music industry and research as well I've done subsequently to try and give myself an idea for patterns that have occurred with Japanese artists trying to go to the West, or just Japanese artists who've been played in the West. So I base this on a lot, and I'm quite confident after our recent comments that I'm feeling even more assured that this is actually quite a good system for judging. But please remember, first of all, this is not a judgment of quality. Second of all, we're talking about how marketable the artist is at the moment. Just the thing, before you think about trying to sell it, just how easy do you think this is if marketed correctly? If we just assume that correct marketing is an innate value, how likely is this to turn the heads of people who like music when, let's face it, we've all got way too much music on our plate to really know what to press play on next? So, these are the sort of qualities I'm looking at. Like I said, it's not about how good an artist is, and it's not even a judgment of if they will break out, because, like I say, we've got some artists who are really well marketed. But I'm just this is an interesting thing because I think this is talking more about the creative product, the creative thing that is in front of you, the how well, like I say, do you think this could be marketed if in the right hands? So, interesting discussion, and I've really loved your comments on it. Like I said, I will try to reply to everything that I can. I really enjoyed the discussions, like I said, so I tried to get into all of the comments from the last video. Still got some to catch up on, so apologies if I miss anything. Do comment on this. As always, please feel free to tell me your scores for other artists, what you think other artists would score on this scale. I'm really looking forward to knowing. You can obviously contest any of the scores I've given. Like I say, I'm open to seeing I try to give definite black and white 1 or 0 scores, but again, this is a rough framework. We might sort of agree on giving like half a point to some things. Let's add some nuance. Let's add some flesh to the bones of this system. And as always, I just really appreciate the comments. Please get your comments in there. Tell me what you think. Let's have a good discussion about this. As always, if you've enjoyed this intensely long waffle, you can like, you can subscribe, you can follow any of the social medias linked in the description below. Our Discord, the link keeps on changing, so apologies if it's a bit out, but feel free. You can always search us on Discord, back a broadcast, you know where to find us if you search that. And we really appreciate anyone coming in and joining the discussion there, because we've got a lot of people talking about Japanese music all the time on our Discord, which is great. Big thank you, as always, to our patrons who... We're not a monetized channel, and you guys are really keeping this whole thing afloat and keeping this whole thing going. So a big, big, big thank you to you. And thank you for just making it through to the end of this video. I really, really love the fact that people are willing to sit down and listen to me waffle. I try to keep things as concise as possible. The coffee does help a little bit. I hope my notes kept me in a relatively easy to follow form. Again, thank you for getting through to the end, and until I hopefully see you soon in Japan for the next one of these, for now, ciao ciao.